Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, to another amazing episode of Hollywood Backlot with Lou and you. What is going on? I am VashSky, and the man of the hour here, Lou Westman's Ghost. How are you doing today, sir?
I'm good for an hour and a half at least. As a man of the hour.
Fantastic. So I want to ask our amazing chat right here. I want to ask them, do you recognize the building in the background of our thumbnail today? If you didn't see it, here you go. Do you recognize it? I tried to make it a little bit obscure, so maybe we can make a game of it. Okay, Lou's got it. Does anybody else in the chat have anything? Let's see. As we wait for the delay to catch up to us.
Should I give him a hint?
Perhaps you should.
If you walked up to this greeting, you might say, "Hi!" That would help.
Yes, that's true. This is a location in actually, I think it's within the 30-mile zone, but that's longer there.
Oh, yeah. Technically, I guess it would be Glendale.
Ooh, see Nita in the chat right there. Awesome stuff to have her here with us right here. Still enjoy the book. Also been reading about the real Lou Osman. Very fascinating indeed. Oh, reply by mail. You might have it right here.
Old studio, but who's where?
Yeah, exactly. Who's where? It says Walt Disney at the top. That's right. TLJ Screwjob. He's got it right here. He's getting onto it. I believe I'll give it a little bit more time for people to.
Well, there is a clue in the title too of this week's show.
Yes, there is. I did leave a little bit of a hint right there. All right, let's see if anybody gets it. Well,
it's
Lou,
now
why don't you go ahead and tell
a Ralph's supermarket, I think. If I remember right, the location where it was.
Yep. Actually, let me see if I can pull it up. My old photos of this place right here. Let's see here. Present, share screen. Oop. And let's see. Yeah, we'll share that. There we go. That right there is what's there right now.
Yeah, Gelson's,
it's a Gelson's.
Right. Which is a swell market, Nita. By the way.
The Hyperion studio. That is right. And this is amazing, Lou. I'm sure you've gone here many times, so I'm not telling you anything that you don't already know. But there is a plaque right here. Tells you that this is a point of historical interest. The site of Walt Disney's original animation studios in Los Angeles, 2719 Hyperion Avenue, from 1926 to 1940. This is also where Walt Disney and his amazing, talented crew of animators were able to animate the original Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs.
Wow. Little did they know that someday.
Yeah, little did they know that their work would be completely perverted by the company that bears their name years later.
I can just see the seven old men looking at each other going, someday there'll be some little idiot saying stupid things about this.
But this is pretty amazing right here. So just beside this old studio site is what they call the Snow White cottage of different Tudor inspired homes. Like it's literally right to the side of this location, which is pretty amazing, pretty awesome, and it's just an incredible location.
Well, it's a fake, of course, but and then we're at one of my favorite restaurants.
Tam O'Shanter's.
The Tam O'Shanter.
Right.
Which was the origin of the entire Lowry's food empire.
Yes.
Literally on that corner where that restaurant is, it began as a potato chip stand. Did you know that?
Ooh, I did not know that.
They literally made this novel thing called potato chips, hot and fresh. And they still do them in the bar, in the restaurant, if you want to go try them. I doubt they're exactly the same, but anyway. And that led the Lowry Lawrence family, I should say, and the Van de Kamp family were related and friends. And Van de Kamp's built a big bakery down the way, which became Van de Kamp's Dutch Bakery, and they had some restaurants. And of course, this was the Tam O'Shanter, but then that led to Lowry's The Prime Rib on La Cienega and several other restaurants. And of course, the seasoning salt and the salad dressings. And eventually they sold all those taco seasonings and everything to Lipton Soup, who still makes them today, or whoever the inheritor of that is. I don't know, the latest corporate whatever. But, funny that somebody with a French background didn't do a French restaurant, but what can I say?
Yeah.
I mean, you know that Disney had them an apostrophe in it way back in the old country. D''ISNEY. Disney. Yes.
Disney.
Yes.
That's funny. I did not know that.
Yeah, Larry Frank was quite a character. And indeed, during World War II, when beef was rationed, Lowry's, instead of the prime rib, which you can probably pull up a picture of the famous carts, which were a take on those from England, became the prime turkey because they couldn't get beef. And instead of prime rib, you had Thanksgiving dinner there. My father used to go there. Anyway, yeah, but you know, this building is kind of what in England they call a folly, when somebody would intentionally make a kind of a fakey version of a building, whether it was a tower or a cottage like this or whatever. In fact, there's one in Beverly Hills that everybody called the Witch House that was very similar to this.
Right. There's a bunch of historic houses and little themed doodads strewn throughout Los Angeles. What I found particularly interesting here was this was all within pretty good proximity of each other. The Snow White Cottage, his childhood, or one of his childhood homes in Los Angeles. This was actually it being renovated. And I believe is the one.
Of course, there aren't too many palm trees in jolly old Snow White land.
yeah, and Snow White's what is it, Germanic village or whatever.
Right.
That is very true.
And Jan Monroe, no, there were French restaurants, but they were old school. There until I guess it's still there. A place called Tay, Taix, which is up on Sunset Boulevard, not far from Dodger Stadium, where they did sort of classic old world French, not fancy French food, but country food. Always this big steaming, wonderful bowl of great soup. And, you know, they did all the famous French dishes. And then, well, I could go on about restaurants in LA all day long, but that's not what you came here for. So, and by the way, Juliet asked about favorite movies of the 70s. Ooh. And I asked you, and you said, Vash.
My favorite of the 70s is definitely the original Star Wars. I gotta really pin it there because, man, it was such a breathtaking film for its time and really ahead of its time, but just really captured the hearts and minds of the American public at a time when the theaters and cinema was becoming a little bit more cynical.
Maybe, but I went and pulled up the 100 best movies of the 70s list on somebody. I think it was on IMDb. And lots of great movies, no doubt. But if you looked at all of those, you have to apply this test, and it is how I came up with mine. And by the way, mine is in your opening credit sequence, Vash. That gives you a slight clue. Of all of those movies, if you're just changing channels and it's on, which one do you stick with and watch to the end? Even though you've seen it 100 times before.
Right.
There can be only one. Am I right?
Yes.
Godfather.
Oh, yeah.
Gotta be Godfather.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, Nita, that place was called Lowry's California Center. And yes, it was at the factory. And it was beautiful with outdoor gardens. And remember they did barbecued tri-tip and Mexican food. And those were super. Yeah. The Cinedome in Orange. Yeah, I remember that theater. I saw it at the Chinese when it first opened. But anyway.
thank you so much, Juliet, for the €2 there. Very much appreciated. And Scott Westbrook with $5 super sticker. Thank you so much. Bravo! With a little dog clapping his hands there. Thank you so much for that. Really amazing to turn up on today's show and be like, whoa, we've already got people donating to us. Thank you so much. Very much appreciated everything.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, it's The Godfather is so good. It is so amazing. It's such a classic, so incredible. Francis Ford Coppola there making his, I would say, his
Juliet, you don't like family films?
What?
Juliet said, I've never seen any of the Godfather movies, not my type of movie. And I said, it's a family movie, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Of course.
Oh, that was the pitch, right? Because I guess at the time, they didn't want to do gangster films.
Gangster movies were always losers until then, money-wise.
Right.
In fact, it was such a family film. There's a funny story that Jimmy Caan used to tell back when he was still with us about making that movie and playing that part. And he went home on the weekend and had dinner at his mother's house. And he was so in character. He said, Ma, would you pass the effing salt? And then realized, oh my God, what did I just say at my mother's dinner table?
Oh, man.
And apologized all over the place. But come on, Ma, would you pass the effing salt? And I'm, of course, keeping things Jonas clean. But anyway.
Yeah, Jonas clean. Indeed. Well, I mean, this really,
family's a family, Jan. Come on.
This really was quite amazing, and probably the first from a new, group of directors that were coming out of not just film school, but just really coming out of an era that grew out of the golden age of Hollywood, was bringing their kind of own spin to it. Very, very cool stuff there, for sure.
Yeah.
Amazing. Well,
anyway,
what's new? Well, I'll tell you exactly what's new right here. Now, obviously, we have we're going to have coverage on these stories on That Park Place, obviously. But I kind of wanted to throw it to Lou here just to ask him his take on things like this, because obviously you're very knowledgeable on the writers and directors guilds and so forth. So this from Hollywood Reporter: Marvel fires back over X-Men 97 creators claim that he was stripped of season 2 credit. Cites egregious investigation findings. So it says right here that apparently there was an internal investigation conducted by Marvel, and what they found was that there was egregious misconduct on his part, and also too that he apparently, sources say that following his exit, an agreement was reached between the two parties over the issue of tweeting about the show, something that DeMaio had continued to occasionally do. In light of the breaches, his credit for season 2 was removed. While no details of the cause of termination or the internal reviews have surfaced, sources say it involved, misconduct, as you can see right there. Lou, I kind of wanted to ask you, is there precedent for stripping people of their credits attached to projects?
Sure, because if he made a deal saying, I'll shut up if you let me keep the credit, and then he didn't shut up. Remember, this thing is not about ego. Credit is about residuals and money, and for him and for his agent and anybody else. So if you make a deal, stick to the deal. That's the simple truth. But apparently his ego and his feeling of being dissed overcame his business sense, which is not surprising.
So I would think that there would be some union bylaw that would have maintained his credits attached to the film,
Not
or
if
at least
he
his
made a
right.
deal signing it away. That's the point. There was obviously, when they got rid of him, some kind of a contract signed that, hey, well, I'll let this just go away. And I'll tell you the truth, the fact that Marvel is not revealing the egregious behavior is them keeping their end of the deal, which was to not publicize it for his benefit. So
yeah, it does sound like that.
Ask me if I care. The guy is obviously poisoned. Nobody's picked him up, have they?
Well, that's a fair point. Word travels fast around that town. That is for sure. Now, Lou, Is there a history of movie studios conducting their own internal investigations like this in order to find out?
Sure, they had to know what to pay off to silence it, who to pay off. Sure, they all had investigators and private detectives and fixers, because let us also remember in those days there were these gossip magazines that were going out of their way to make them look bad, and so it was the eternal war of fake news versus real news, which persists in case nobody's noticed.
Jay Monroe asks, is that why Amber Heard lost her case? Part of the divorce was NDA, but she wouldn't shut up.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
But if the case was the case. The case is not about the NDA. But if Johnny's people wanted to pursue her on violating the NDA, that's another story. But they just wanted it all to go away too, so nobody bothered. And obviously there was no money involved in that part of it. So unlike a contract with a studio involving your residual rights to being named as part of the creative process. So
I think he wanted his name cleared as well.
Asking, didn't the 30s and 40s gangsters movie make money? Yeah, sure. Back then they did. But really, in the 50s and the 60s, not so much. So, and besides that, we all talked many times on this show and elsewhere about the competition of free TV. You had the Untouchables with gangster stuff on TV every night for nothing. So that probably hurt the box office of some of those films. But the big studios, it wasn't so much a matter of such movies don't make money. It was they don't make enough money to justify a major motion picture with a big budget. So anyway, but The Godfather certainly did.
Oh man, made money hand over fist and really made Francis Ford Coppola a household name. I think he wasn't necessarily interested in making a gangster film at first. He read the script and so forth.
They said, "Oh, we got this." Well, for that matter, of course, the story they tell about Sergio Leone was after a fistful of dollars and a few dollars more, and the good, the bad, and the ugly. The studio finally came to him and said, "Okay, you can make one in Hollywood." And he said, "Nah, I'm tired of Westerns. I want to make gangster movies." And they didn't want one. That was before The Godfather. And so they said, "Okay, we'll let you do Once Upon a Time in America, but you have to do Once Upon a Time in the West also." So he got 2 wonderful movies out of that deal.
Well, that is that's just how these things evolve, I suppose. But yeah, Once Upon a Time in the West. That's a great film. I can't even imagine him not having done that. So I'm glad in that case the studio forces him.
Good too.
Yep.
But a totally different perspective.
Sure.
And some might say that it had less impact on the audience and the box office because The Godfather was such a hit by comparison. That people had gotten their fill with 3 Godfather movies and all the rest. But I'm not talking about the feature of Untouchables. I'm talking about the TV show with Robert Stack. So anyway, yeah, it's a great picture. Brian De Palma knew what he was doing, as they say.
Yeah. Reply by mail.
The horse head.
I do agree with you. That is definitely something that is shocking for sure. But that horse head scene, that had to do with a
legend,
studio
an urban legend about Frank Sinatra. Yes,
right.
That's how he got From Here to Eternity, which I just watched the other day, by the way. If you want to watch an old movie that stands up and that has some strange things in it that you wouldn't expect, certainly the casting of Sinatra makes more sense than everybody's favorite innocent housewife, Donna Reed, as the hooker. But that's what she plays in that movie. So there you go.
You could just say Lady of the Night, Lou.
Well, I could if you want me to, but I think daytime you get a discount. But at least in Honolulu in 1941 when the movie takes place. But
well, horse heads, and oh, that has some alliteration too with our
Yes.
with our title right there. That is wonderful. Well, that horse head scene though, like you said, there is the Frank Sinatra, legend attached to that, but also too that all kind of stems back in that sequence of the film with one of the family members getting a role in a Hollywood production. So that's it all has a way of circling back there. Very, very interesting. Yes, Josh Hammond, unfiltered with Lou and you.
Well,
Exactly.
but Josh, it's history.
It
Where
is.
that term came from. It was General Hooker of the Union Army, who had people following his soldiers around for fun and profit, and they called them hookers. So what's wrong with that? Thank God it wasn't Sherman or Grant. We'd have a whole different world today.
That's
anyway.
true. That's true. That's true. Well, speaking of a different world, I suppose, Snow White's world right here. Little People, Big World star Zach Roloff torches Peter Dinklage in Disney's Snow White. So this coming from That Park Place, John F. Trent doing amazing work right there. Yeah. Talking about how Peter Dinklage's comments really has, I'm pretty sure there have been some big roles for Little People lost from Peter Dinklage's comments. Lou, you think so?
I'm laughing because I'm thinking of that famous line from Sunset Boulevard where Norma Desmond says, "I was still big, but the pictures got small." Well, the roles in this case. Look, this is the same thing as these idiots who want you never to watch Gone with the Wind again because of those evil stereotypes. And of course, never mind the fact that and Song of the South and so many pictures, these people all got jobs. These people all got to feed their kids and send them to college. And I think one of them, I think it was, I can't think of her name, the lady who's Mammy in Gone with the Wind. She said, "I'd rather get paid for playing a maid than be one." But you shouldn't do that because, my God, you might actually show something that happened.
Yeah, I mean,
I have no patience for such people. And then, of course, you heard my joke about dear Rachel, who had to come out, and after that trailer has been, as they say, ratioed, which means over 10 to 1 or 100 to 1 people
so
negative
11 to 1,
on
I
it
believe,
than
right
positive.
now.
Yeah, 11 to 1. And then she comes out and says, "I'm so glad so many people saw our trailer. And by the way," and puts in a plug for the bad guys in the Middle East, when
Goodness
her co-star,
gracious.
of course, is now being attacked because, that movie has a killer in it. Because Gal Gadot was in the IDF, as all patriotic people from Israel were or are. But I said, Gal Gadot is such a classy lady. She sent her co-star an apple pie.
That's not bad, Lou. That's not bad indeed. Could you imagine what that press tour?
Daniel, yes, Karen Owen, thank you.
Imagine what that press tour is going to be like, right? Here you
press
have
tour. Press gang is more like it.
Well, I mean, you have to promote this thing, right? I mean, this is a plus $400 million production at this point. Who knows what the advertising costs will be? But now it's like, do you have Rachel Zegler or Gal Gadot in a room together at this point because of that tension? I don't know.
I don't think Gal Gadot gives a damn, and I think she knows she's a pretty sophisticated lady, and that the fact that she's generous is that she hasn't used the lasso of truth to make Rachel admit that she's just stupid.
Well, that's an interesting thing, Josh Hammond. Apparently, the plot for this, I don't know if you've heard, I don't know if you've seen it. It's based on a little picture, 1937. But going by the original, Gal Gadot's character is supposed to be jealous of Rachel Zegler's looks here.
Right.
And some people have said that that's, what is it? The suspense of disbelief. It might not be there. I'll put it that way.
There you go. Karen Owen has the answer in the chat. Did you see what she said?
Oop.
Maybe the animated animals can do the interviews for the president. I love it.
Yes, indeed.
By the way, are they getting Peter Dinklage and little people to do the voices of the animated dwarves?
See, I don't think so. I think they're actually going with big name talent here. And like I was saying before, with this story, you have to think that there might have been some roles that would have otherwise gone to little people, and we've seen some amazing performances by little people over the decades of cinema, and yet we will not get to see them here because of Peter Dinklage's own thoughts on it, and really kind of speaking for our whole community.
But talking about the animals again, if this movie's as bad as it seems it is, will PETA complain that those animals were abused by being forced to be in it, even in animated form?
That's going to have to be a very bad picture right there.
It's going to have to be a very bad picture.
Yeah. I think one could make the argument, a reasonable argument, that this might not turn out well. In fact, at the D23 Expo, at the Entertainment Showcase, where they were showing this particular picture off, amongst a litany of others, even the pixie dusters and the people who were very excited for anything Disney came out of that auditorium going, you know what, everything looks good except for Snow White. Because the uncanny valley on some of those faces is really appalling. I have to think that if imagine the CG budget that goes into creating digital characters like that. I have to think that the budget could have gone down for the whole film tremendously, and we could have seen some great performances had Peter Dinklage not made those comments.
And didn't they all look... Well, it isn't that he made the comments. It's that anybody at Disney took him seriously and listened. It's like I always say, when the whole excrement hit the aerator about this bill in Florida that was misnamed by the bad people, they said, oh, well, the employees insisted, the cast members insisted. And I said, Universal draws from the same demographic, has cast members of the same persuasion, who I'm sure were equally incensed, went to their managers and said, damn it, what are you going to do? And the smart people at Universal, remember, Universal owns CNBC, MSNBC, NBC, all of these very much to the left organs. And they said, no, not in the theme park business. We're not. That isn't what we do. We welcome families of all kinds, and we don't get into politics. Gee, somebody in the movie business in 2023, 24 acted like a grown-up. Stop the presses. Call the Guinness Book. Give me a break.
Right. It's man, if Disney were to just stay out of this stuff, then it would be just fine. The fact that they wanted to butt in and say, oh, no. We know what's morally right in Florida over the representatives you people have voted for. In fact, we're going to use all our resources.
We're preserving democracy. Well, the democracy means people voted for those people who voted for that bill.
Right.
But they didn't vote your way. So suddenly, no. Anyway, that's too political. We should go back to the fun and magical world of movies, right?
Of course. I just wanted to go ahead and bring up the story because I thought it was very fascinating, and to see I don't know, Hollywood's the usage of little people in movies has gone down tremendously, obviously in the CG era and so forth.
Gone down, gone up, whatever. If they to use something from another Disney classic, if the shoe fits, Cinderella. What the activists want is, thou shalt have a little person or 12 in every movie, whether the part is well, why don't they have a little person playing Maui in the Moana remakes?
That's an interesting question.
Because Maui's a big muscular guy. Oh, well, why should that matter? Why couldn't it be a female or female identifying little person? For the same reason that woman beater in the Olympics shouldn't be there. All right, let's go back to Hollywood, should we? Or
Of
the old
course.
Hollywood anyway. You know, the one where the grown-ups were in charge. They may have done childish
Absolutely.
things, but they were grown-ups at their core.
Well, Andrew M says The Wizard of Oz did the DEI right. And you know what? Speaking of Wizard of Oz, I believe you have a pretty good story for the ages regarding this.
Oh, yeah. Didn't I tell that one here already? I didn't?
I don't know if you told it on this show.
Well, you've seen versions of it by now because suddenly everybody's putting it on things like they think of it, but it's true. And it's very, very true. The Wizard of Oz, 1939, the year when MGM made more than 52 movies. I forget what the number was, but that means more than one a week came out of there. And they were cruising, and they bought the rights to The Wizard of Oz, which was a very popular children's book. But they didn't put children. Look, there you go. What about children's rights? Why did they dare put Judy Garland, a grown-up woman, in the role of this little girl? Weren't there any little girl actresses around, or actors who would put on a wig? Because right. Judy's dresses all had to be made to compress, shall we say, her feminine form to make her not look her age. I don't know if you knew that, but there was a whole undergarment, whatever. Scott Westbrook, I don't know. It was more the scandal side, that movie. He's asking about this pastiche of it called Under the Rainbow, which was, they took all the rumors and put them in a movie. But this is the true story about the Wizard of Oz. The beginning, as you know, in Kansas is in black and white, and we only go to full Technicolor when we go to Oz. That was a wonderful creative decision, but they weren't quite sure they were going to release the movie that way because they felt I should stop reading the chat and just tell the story because I get distracted by some silly things. Anyway, they decided to make it more real, to make that stuff in the real world feel more real, that they would not, as they normally would, make the costumes for all of them in the Kansas sequence. They would actually go buy real clothes at thrift shops in downtown LA, obviously based on the size of the people. And yeah, the witch's costume is separate, of course. But except for Judy's dress, which, as I said, had to be engineered, all of those clothes were real. I mean, real in the sense that they were, and this being MGM, they didn't buy one. They went down with the measurements of the actors and they bought dozens of sets of clothes for each of them, and then came back to the studio and tried them on. And they decided for the Wiz, when he's not the Wiz, Professor Marvel, Frank Morgan, that they wanted the idea that this guy at once upon a time had more money and had more status and had come down in the world to where he was now this medicine man. And so they decided he should be wearing a tuxedo coat of some kind. And what they finally decided after he went on down this rack of clothes with the director, Victor Fleming, trying them on, was this tailcoat, this Edwardian morning coat, it's called. It is the kind of coat that basically butlers and head waiters would wear. Mm-hmm. And that's what they did. Now, flash forward, and let me explain a little technology to you. Technicolor was not, as we know color today, a chemical color process. It was literally a printing process, by which I mean 3 pieces of film went through that camera together, each with a separate filter, so that you had the 3 component colors of color, which were cyan, kind of a magenta-y color, or cyan and magenta and yellow. I forget what the technical terms were. But the point is that those 3, in some mix or another, would create color. Each one was black and white film, but going past a filter, so it only picked up the frequencies of color that it was intended to. And then those pieces of film were used as what was called a printing matrix. And literally in the Technicolor lab, once the cut was finished, they were put through a bath of dye and pressed against a clear, plain piece of film. And the 1, 2, 3, just like the colors in comic books or other primitive printing processes. And that's how it was done. Well, to get the light through all 3 filters and pieces of film to expose it properly, you needed a lot of light. And I mean an enormous amount of light. There he is. Which meant, as it happens, that The Wizard of Oz was shot during one of the hottest summers on record in Los Angeles. And that on those sound stages, which remember, didn't have air conditioning in those days, when you were on that stage that summer making that movie with all the lights on, the temperature could be over 115 degrees. So when you see all these performers doing their thing in that atmosphere, consider how hard it was. But the point is that Frank Morgan, who played the Wizard of Oz, was a drinker. He was a serious drinker. And because of that, partially, he really, really, really perspired a lot on that hot set. And remember that the clothes, these plain clothes that they bought at the thrift shops, were not modern materials. They were all wool and heavy. And they were also not something that people in the 1880s or whenever they were actually made bought off a rack. They didn't go to Tux R Us and get a tuxedo. They were all custom tailored by individual tailors to a particular gentleman's form. Well, guess what happens when you're wearing a wool heavy coat and clothes and you sweat a lot? It gets heavy. It gets ridiculously heavy because the moisture from your body is trapped in that cloth and makes the whole thing, like carrying around weights. Well, the costume people who knew Technicolor were used to that. And they had a little trick, which was, there you go. Anyway, that was the.
There's like a liner. There's like a liner in the jacket.
There's a silk liner, and what they told him was between takes, reach in the pockets and pull the liner out. Leave it blowing in the wind because it'll help it dry out. And he did. Now, in those days, when people tailored clothing for somebody, there was an embroidered label on that liner that gave the name of the tailor and the name of the person for whom that coat was made. Now, please remember, a random choice by the buyers in the thrift shops, and then a random choice of, I was told, 11 different coats by Fleming and Morgan before they picked that one, putting it in the movie, not even knowing if they were going to keep it black and white, because those scenes were shot with Technicolor too, just in case. And one day he looks down at the label and he can't believe it. And they call in the director and he can't believe it. And everybody goes to the PR people for the movie who say, people won't believe it. They'll think we made it up. It's not a story we can tell. But they verified the truth of it. And they got the man for whom the coat was made's widow, because he was passed away by then, and had her come in and take a look and said, yeah, that was my husband's coat way back when. I wonder how many of you know who that coat belonged to. Frank Baum, the author of The Wizard of Oz. So in the movie, The Wizard of Oz is wearing the coat of the real Wizard of Oz. And that's deadly true, folks. You will hear people poo-poo it. You will hear it back and forth, but it's all true. So,
wow.
Hollywood, da-da-da-da-da-da. That's the spookiest, most wonderful Hollywood magic story I know. And I know a few.
Wild.
Anyway.
Wild. That's crazy.
And again, they wouldn't put the story out at the time because they said people will think we're full of it. They'll think it's press agentry, not reality. But they did have a little ceremony on the set after they were done with the coat and gave it to the widow Baum. So there you go.
Amazing. Absolutely incredible. It's just an amazing history Hollywood has for sure. Like Usual Motives just said, love these old stories. I love them too. That is the best part of this show by far. Nita, how neat Lou Wasserman's Ghost. You're such a great storyteller. He is indeed. Absolutely incredible. Amazing. Thank you so much
Nita,
for sharing.
thank you very much. I appreciate it. I will say to you what I once said to a judge. I had a totally bogus parking or traffic violation, and I decided to go fight it. And I proved that the officer was wrong and won. And I was probably 17, 18, someplace in there. And in the big traffic court, Los Angeles has a whole 7-story building downtown that's nothing but traffic court. So as befits its traffic capital title. Anyway, the judge said, "Excuse me, young man, but before you go, you handled your case very well. Are you by any chance a law student or something like that?" And I said, "No, Your Honor, but it's easy when you're telling the truth." So, so it's not exactly easy. I am a professional storyteller after all. I've been paid to tell stories since I was about 12 or 14 years old when I wrote an article not a fiction story that got sold to a magazine and won a contest and like that. But yeah, it's a hell of a story. And when it's the truth, it's easier.
You also read LW Ghost stories actually on That Park Place.
Oh, that's true. And those are true too, even if they're only my opinion.
Well, usually your opinion's not too far off from reality.
The truth, right?
Yeah, exactly. I do want to just acknowledge Scott Westbrook just for a second here. I know we read it before, but Scott Westbrook for $5. Thank you so much. For Lou, with the recent discussion of The Wizard of Oz, was there any degree of realism to Under the Rainbow?
Yeah, that I kind of responded to. I don't know. I mean, you hear stories about all the wild and crazy stuff with the Munchkins, but you know, there are all these the making of movies out there, some for fun, some for serious, and probably not is the answer. I don't know. I have no idea. And I see Captain John D wants me to be his attorney in traffic court. John, if you have to ask, you can't afford me.
Fantastic. I love it. Cap John D with $10. Lou, are you open to representing me in traffic court next month? Obviously did that, but I want to go ahead and give him his drop here.
Oh, wait, he ran somebody over? My price doubled. The dead men and the tails. But we can put a shroud over that because it won't offend people that way, right?
Right. Let us see here. By the way, folks, if you do have any questions for Lou, go ahead and jump in the chat.
Yeah.
You're always up for answering questions for sure.
Nita, I have 3 wonderful grandkids at varying ages from 3 different families that were happy inheritances of marrying my wonderful wife. And what I've been giving them as far as stories is my childhood. And I don't mean me telling them about it. To give you an idea, the now 9-year-old, just about to be, has received from me the complete box set of Batman 66, because I showed him the little clip from the movie about some days you just can't get rid of a bomb, and he was tickled. And then I gave him F Troop, and now that he's a little older, this year he's getting The Man from U.N.C.L.E. And so that's my pitch every week is get physical media, guys. And share it with your families and with yourself every few years.
Yeah, definitely get physical media as much as you can possibly get it, because man, oh man, you even when you buy stuff on the streaming sites there, you don't necessarily always own it. And if you do engage with those streaming sites, well, you just got to be careful that you don't have an accident on Disney property, for example, where you can actually sue. That story did drop as well. And we have more coverage on that Park Place as well. Storytellers.
Thank you. Juliet is telling us she liked the Genre Guys Master and Commander coverage that came out yesterday. That's a wonderful movie. And good friend of mine was one of the producers, and so I heard a lot of inside stuff. But
I love that. That is.
those who haven't watched our genre guys yet, you should, and you will learn that what that movie has in common with Titanic, by the way.
So, yes. It was kind of a pleasant surprise that we were able to get the Master and Commander episode fresh from the pro.
I was going to say that should have been in lockup on the pro side, but
should have been, yes, but it was titled, "Hey, it's going to be making its premiere on T3PO on August 17th," and I was like, "Oh, okay." So there it is. So, I found out the same as you folks.
But wonderful movie. It was fun watching it again. Very much not a lesser of two Weevils, that movie. And if you've seen the movie, you know the joke. And if you don't, watch it.
It's a great film. Also, too, I don't think there's a single female role in that whole movie, for better or for worse, I suppose. But man, oh man, is it accurate? And it's such a great film, and really an amazing episode, folks. Definitely check it out here on T3PO. We were able to spice it up a little bit as well, so should make for fun viewing.
On the production side, we've been a little bit on hiatus because Mr. Tables had to do some out-of-town stuff. So we made like 2 a week for a while, and they're all filling in the blanks. But the next one we're going to do, he will still be not around, and so we've enlisted Marvin, the movie monster, to join us to do Superman, which I think we're doing next Saturday, and then it'll be out whenever it's out.
Mm-hmm.
But who is the best on-screen Philip Marlowe?
Captain John D with the $5. Thank you.
Well, Dick Powell is an interesting guy. I happened to meet him a few times because he did, I think, a lot of unappreciated detective stuff. I'm trying to think if he was. I think he was. Wait a minute. Let me make sure before I say something stupid. There was a radio show that he did with. Let's see. Let me just make sure that I'm remembering correctly. Oh no, I'm sorry. Yeah, forget it. No, it wasn't him. But when you consider that Dick Powell did all those musicals, and the sort of lighter parts, he brought some gravitas to Marlowe. There's no doubt about it, which you wouldn't necessarily have expected. So, and of course, as a producer, he did so many shows. I'm trying to think of all the different TV shows that. Well, let's find out. This internet thing, it knows everything when you don't. But,
I have heard it knows everything. All the right things and the wrong things.
Well, let's see. Let's see. Yeah, there was. Well, he did. Let's see. 4-Star Playhouse. Yeah. Anyway, he did this show called the Dick Powell Theater in the early days, with just a few minor actors were on that show. Robert Mitchum, Frank Sinatra, Ronald Reagan, Glenn Ford, Charles Boyer, Jackie Cooper, Rock Hudson, Milton Berle, Jack Lemmon, Dean Martin, Robert Taylor, Steve McQueen, David Niven, Danny Thomas, Robert Wagner, and John Wayne. How's that for a crossover from the 40s to the 50s? And also the directors of that show, Dick Powell Theater, just some minor guys named Blake Edwards, Sam Peckinpah, Ralph Nelson, Arthur Hiller, Ray Milland, Don Medford, Buzz Kulick, all the guys who wound up making all the TV. Bruce Geller, Aaron Spelling, Blake Edwards did several. Robert Vaughn. Anyway, Lee Marvin. That's a lot of people that he made possible. Well, I'd like to see that. Listen to this. In 1962, Peckinpah directed and co-wrote the episode. Now, this is with Theodore Bickel, Carol O'Connor, Arthur O'Connell, and Strother Martin. And the name of the episode, if you get the joke, everybody out there, Pericles on 31st Street. Instead of Miracle on 34th Street, it's Pericles on 31st Street. That's fun. I'd like to see those shows, wouldn't you?
Oh, absolutely. 100%.
They're out there somewhere.
I had to get a
on
copy
NBC
of
from
those
61 to 63. But yeah, anyway.
Fantastic.
Yeah, Dick Powell was a great guy. Very nice guy. Very nice guy. So underrated dancer, yes, I would agree, because look, John D., when you're in those Busby Berkeley movies, nobody's looking at the guy dancing. They're looking at the 400 gals dancing behind him. So, or at least at Ruby Keeler. But
I gotta get one of these. I gotta get Captain John D on here to talk some old vintage cinema right there, because man, oh man, he knows his stuff. That is, we got some amazing movie files out there. That is for sure. Thank you so much, Captain John D, for that. Here we go, Lady True North, Canadian $5. Thank you so much. Hey yo, Vash Knight of Nostalgia and Court Jester Lou, a top up for the Get Physical Media Fund. Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much.
Thank you, my friend. Lady True North is my Islander pal up there on Vancouver Island.
And that's also
birds and things.
Isn't that also where there's going to be an island animated from? Actually, Moana 2. The studios
well, they're actually in downtown Vancouver, but this is as in where Victoria is, the island.
Gotcha.
Butchart Gardens and ferry boats and high tea at the Empress Hotel and all that kind of stuff.
Well, you know, geography, not my strongest suit, but thank you so much, Lady True North. Fantastic. You know. Spencer, by the way, it's 3 a.m. here. Shout out from the other side of the world. Thank you so much for that, Spencer Kabuto from Abandoning the Comics, editor-in-chief there. Thank you so much for tuning in right now. Spencer, you've been very supportive of this channel and our other channels all over the network, so thank you so much for that. Tom F with a question. Lou, did you have anything, do you know anything from the Fort Lee NJ side of filmmaking?
Well, I know that's where it started, and it wasn't far enough away from the thugs of the man so prominent in our intro, Thomas Edison. But in fact, I guess it was Fort Lee where the Great Train Robbery, the first Western, was shot, I believe. But then there's other work there. You know, if you live in New York, New Jersey is the wilderness, I guess. But I'm not a Jersey guy. I don't know that much about Jersey. I know they have silly highways with those, what they call jug handle intersections. But other than that, not much. Ooh, there he is.
Yeah, it's Thomas Edison himself. Yeah, there was a lot of people who were looking to capitalize on the moving pictures business initially, and well, that caused some people to make the migration out west. And after stopping off Arizona for actually a thunderstorm, which happened this morning, Lou.
Oh, so who knows who was passing through and left because there was a thunderstorm?
Exactly. Exactly. It's like, well, let's pick up shop here, go a little bit more west, and well, let's settle in a town called Hollywood. So very cool, awesome history, as has been relayed by Lou in the past.
He's talking about my favorite year. Yeah, that's a wonderful film. Truly wonderful. Karen, thank you for looking it up, and I'm sorry that episode's not there, but I'm sure some more of them are very much worth watching.
Oh.
Karen Owen put up that the Dick Powell Theater is on Internet Archive for streaming. Yeah.
Well, we're going to have to complete
all
that.
These things I don't know. I don't know why you come here to listen to me, but I'm glad you do.
Well, no, she was seeking out some content based on your recommendation.
Yes. Jan, yeah, sure, it was cheaper, but they were primarily trying to get out of the city so that they wouldn't get caught by the guys who literally would come up and bust up your camera and your cameraman and everybody else because you weren't paying the license fee to Mr. Edison for the privilege.
Yeah. Oh, there was some bad stuff happening out there back east. There were, I mean, you also had some real mobsters out there to carry out your bidding.
No, really?
You had to get away from them, right, Lou?
Didn't have any of those in L.A., Bugsy.
Well, they came later.
Yeah, well, not much later. Not much later.
Mm-hmm.
They
For
smelled
sure,
money.
indeed.
They smelled money. And as we discovered, the reason why the IATSE became the one and only union for what it did is they had help from a guy named Frank Nitti, which brings us back to that TV show, The Untouchables, who was Al Capone's enforcer to close out the other guys. So, hey, you can't divorce the creative world from the real world, no matter how much you try. Oh, there he is. Good old Frank. Oh, yeah. And then here's Bruce Gordon, who played him on the show, right smack dab in the middle on the lower row.
Right.
Oh, much better looking, much better voice.
Yeah,
but
I agree.
Anyhow.
But man, oh man, there were some movers and shakers over there in the classic Hollywood. Very interesting indeed. Mnuck with another response.
Actually, Go and Shogi, when you're talking about the Sunset Tower Hotel, of course, it is most famous to television fans as the home of Cannon, whose apartment in the show was the top floor of that building. So there you go. I love, when Lorne and all the other guys go deep into Star Wars canon and what is and isn't, I always tell them the only canon I respect and pay attention to is Frank, who lived on top of that building. It's now a hotel, but it was an apartment building for a long time.
Wow. Yeah. Beautiful.
It's great. And when they first put the hotel, I haven't been there in years, but they really respected that architecture in redoing the inside and the lobby and the restaurant and the pool area and all of that.
Kind of like an 1920s Art Deco.
Yeah.
Very.
But let's see.
Very cool. That's amazing looking. Beautiful. Handsome building right there. That's for sure.
Yeah, and that's where Cannon resided. I just did Frank Cannon's apartment. I got lots of pictures of him in his car, but not much of the set. But anyway, a Quinn Martin production. And of course, William Conrad, who played Cannon, was the original Matt Dillon on the radio, and all kinds of things on the radio. He was, long before. Oh God, they have people's. The internet, like you said, it has lots of information, but it also has nonsense. I mean, they just showed a random tombstone of somebody named Frank Cannon somewhere, but that Lincoln Continental that he drove was fun though, and he had the big, giant, huge radio phone back in the days before cellular. Remember those?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Let's see if we can. Oh yeah. Okay, now I know what you're talking about here. Whoa. That is fun.
Yeah. Well, I just like to see the fat guy beat up the bad guys. We do that,
Oh yeah. You know what? It's that excellent Wade and Vinge.
Yeah. Well, it's all about being light on your feet. Anyway. I remember those shows where the car companies would provide the cars, and every year he'd get a new one because the new models would come out. Well, like at the Ford exhibit at the World's Fair in New York, where the second year they swapped out all the cars for the new year's models. So, because for those who don't know, the dinosaurs at the Primeval World at Disneyland originated at the Disney-built Ford exhibit at the New York World's Fair. And since the fair ran for 2 summers, the actual vehicle that you rode around the ride in was a Ford convertible, mostly Mustangs. And so they swapped them all out the second year. And I remember that ride so well because what was really neat, those of you old enough to remember when car radios had push buttons that you could pre-tune to 5 channels, there it is. Each button in the cars that you rode through that ride was a different language narration.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah, that was pretty fun.
Oh, that's super cool.
English, French, German, Chinese, I think, and I forget the third, Spanish probably. But and then they put those cars back together as regular cars and sold them through the Ford dealers.
Really?
Yeah, they were. I mean, they were actual off the assembly line cars that they altered, obviously, for the show. But
sure, but I never knew they reassembled them. I know they
actually sold those cars, and as special edition Mustangs and things.
If people don't know the unique history of the Ford's Magic Skyway as done by Disney for the 1964-65 World's Fair, Lou is exactly correct. Mostly 1964 Mustangs, which was a new car model by Ford that year. Pretty cool to have its debut at the 1964 World's Fair. But it actually utilized a very early people mover technology. The classic people mover technology, where you actually you had motors.
And then, of course, that spiral ramp that you just showed, where you went up from where you got on the car, was duplicated in World of Motion at Epcot when it opened.
Indeed, and it has made a profound statement for decades.
Unluck is mentioning Banachek also had those radio phones in his. But not a Lincoln Continental. No. The perfect car is Banachek's car. Go search for Banachek's classic car. Oh, I love that car so much.
Will do. But those motors and those tires in the track at the Ford's Magic Skyway Pavilion at 1964-65 World's Fair made their way back to Disneyland, and that's why the track for the People Mover was the way it was designed in order to make use of every single one of those. I see. Let's see here. This one, I'm guessing?
No. The one in the lower center to the left. The Packard. That one.
Oh, yes.
I don't know what those others are. But yeah, well, if you go second from the left, that's in front of his building in Boston. But yeah, the Darren design Packard, the Victoria. Wonderful car. Wonderful car.
Gotcha.
And then they have what? They have Columbo's Peugeot next to it. The limo, yeah, okay, fine. But there you go. How you like that?
Oh,
God, is that a gorgeous, gorgeous car?
And I even like the color.
I want one. Any of you out there who really want to super chat me, there you go. But see, just like with Canon, I am not a purist. If you had a brand new car with all the safety features and the engines and just put that body and interior on it, I'd be happy. I'm not. I once saw a guy with a fantastic classic 1950s Jaguar at a car show, and it was perfect and it was beautiful and it was British racing green. And I asked him how it drove, and he said, like a 70-year-old car. Anyway.
The classic designs are so good. Fantastic. And like I said before, I even like the color, which, by the way, if anybody can actually tell me where that reference is from, extra brownie points for you. Captain John D with $5. Thank you so much, Captain. Very much appreciated. As a fan of Westerns, Lou, what are your thoughts on the much maligned musical Paint Your Wagon with Clint Eastwood and Lee Marvin?
They can't sing. Put them in a Western, sure, but they can't sing. So that's kind of a problem with that movie for me. But
yeah, not good. You gotta be able to sing. And what is it? I guess the actors for Les Mis got into trouble with that as well, where they were trying to force, these more theatrical.
Never put Clint Eastwood and Lee Marvin in a musical before the invention of auto-tune. Let me just sum it up that way. One of the great adages of the movies. We were talking about Banachek. If you look around, guys, on YouTube, somebody has put all of those Polish proverbs that Banachek used to spout on the show into one long clip. And I think you could add that one to those, Those who don't remember Banachek, I feel bad for you. And then the theme song, my God. Billy Goldenberg, I think, did the theme song. And it was great, too. But this, look at Gene Seberg is looking like, what am I doing with these two guys? That's a bad box. God.
Yeah,
you want to buy this? I don't know.
That's rough right there. Hey, maybe that's another genre, guys. You can guys do and break it down.
I don't think I'm that desperate for entertainment. We have quite a few on the list. But
that's very true. That's tough. I didn't even know this thing existed until Captain John D here. Thank you so much for this. I'm gonna have some fun.
Next time you want your ears pierced in a different way, go watch it. Born under a wandering tone, a sense of key. Anyway,
terrible. MH with the South African Rand, I believe, 1999. Thank you so much for this. Lou, what was Hollywood like in the late 1980s when much of the Diller killers were running things?
Very Diller, yeah. Well, and
what was Frank Wells like?
Everything tells me he was pretty special, and I think he made things work. This idea of two guys running a big company like this, one watching the bucks and one watching the talent, is a good idea. They should try it again sometime.
Well, that's the crazy thing, Lou. This company is way bigger than Frank Wells and Michael Eisner back in their days, and yet we only have one person at the top. Isn't that a very strange structure when you're talking about?
That's the way he likes it. He gets what he wants because he's the guy. That's all. And those people, oh, golly, what if they only got rid of him? The woods are full of them. He has infested the house like termites, so.
One of my favorite Frank Wells stories that has ever been recorded, Bruce Gordon used to tell it all the time, actually, famous Imagineer, it talks about the creation of Splash Mountain. And even though Michael Eisner's son, Brett Eisner, selected that attraction to be created, the price tag was very, very high. It was going to be one of the most ambitious attractions ever created by Walt Disney Imagineering at the time. And so it needed kind of more approvals. And Michael goes, okay, I'm going to send Frank Wells to you guys, being Tony Baxter and Bruce Gordon, and we'll see what we can do. Frank Wells comes in. Here's the big pitch from Bruce Gordon and Tony Baxter, taking them through the entire attraction, taking them through Chickapin Hill and the old Song of the South stories and so forth, going over how they're going to reutilize the audio animatronics from America Sings in order to make this possible and bring the cost down. And he hears the whole pitch, and he's like, oh, man, it's just too expensive, guys. And the whole room is crestfallen there. They're thinking that this is going to be one of the major attractions under this administration. And they're thinking, I guess these executives don't believe in our vision. Frank Wells goes, yeah, but we can't not do it. Let's try to make it work. And reordered some things, got the budget down just a little bit, and said, okay, hey, I can go back to Michael and tell him that I beat you guys up for $10 million or something like that.
Right.
And got it made, and that was Frank Wells, and that's why he was very beloved and very missed.
See, and I think Roy was too. I think you hear all these stories. Well, Roy wouldn't let him spend the money, and Roy said no to everything. No, he wanted it. He wanted it to happen. He just had a better grip on the limitations that they were under.
He was very he was very protective of his brother. He was, and there was a famous story actually. When the company had to acquire officially both Disneyland and Imagineering because it was kind of off the books, but it was still using company resources in order to get a lot of stuff funded and stuff. And well, now you have shareholders to answer to. And Roy's just like, hey, listen, we got to get this in line. We have to acquire these officially. And Walt didn't want to let him go, and especially for the price that Roy was quoting him. And they didn't talk for 6 months over that whole thing. But it was Roy attempt to be protective of him. For sure. And just understand that, look, we have to have some limitations on your dreams because we don't want them to, fizzle out kind of thing. So I think you're right.
Yeah.
But But thank you.
So
Mitch.
meanwhile,
Mm-hmm.
see, Jan Monroe says about Paint Your Wagon. If you fast forward through the bad singing, there's actually some good singing.
Okay.
Let us all try and remember a time when we couldn't fast forward anything. We were sitting there in the theater stuck with it. I imagine the guys in the screening room about, they're the first cut. What do you think? Well, if we fast forward through all the rotten singing, we'll have a 20-minute movie.
Well, that's good for capacity
on that budget.
Well, but Lou, we can have 10 showings a day.
Well, yeah,
we did it that way.
The theaters will love us. They'll sell more popcorn, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, not very good at all. Let's see here. Critical response. Vincent Canby, in his October 16th, 1969 review for the New York Times, wrote that the film was, quote, amiable. However, because amiability is never in overabundant supply, especially in Hollywood super productions, the movie can be enjoyed more than simply tolerated.
Wow. Well, there have been some great movie reviews. My favorite of all time is still, there was a guy named Bert Perlutsky who did all the movie reviews in Los Angeles Magazine, and he was very witty. And his one sentence review of Chitty Chitty Bang Bang is the classic movie review of all time. You know what he said? Mm-hmm. He said, this movie starts off with a bang, but it winds up chitty. And that was it. No pictures, no nothing. Usually he got 3 pages in the magazine to give him. No, that was it. Starts off with a bang, but winds up chitty.
Oh, yeah. The Chitty Chitty Bang Bang. It's definitely... Oh, it's something. It's about the... I've heard it called one of like the most Disney-like films without actually being Disney. And
it had Dick Van Dyke, and that's a lot of it. And it was
Richard Robert Sherman did the music for it.
Yeah, well, and so the song isn't bad, but anyway, and the name came from the sound of the engine, supposedly. Chitty chitty bang bang, chitty chitty bang bang.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that's where the name supposedly came from. Which reminds me of one of my favorite movies. How many of you out there have ever seen, and I love my wife as Vash is a testament to, but How to Murder Your Wife with the Tapakata machine? Have you? Terry Thomas, Jack Lemmon. Oh, wow, what a wonderful movie that is. And a score by Neil Hefti. There it is. Do we get hit if I hum a song?
No, I don't think so.
Just from that whole period. Yeah, Verna Lisi. That's a lot of girl, right, John Gibson? That's a lot of girl. Sober as a judge, yes. And goofballs, as your doctor calls them. He's a cartoonist who has this adventure cartoon guy, Bash Brannigan, I think it is, or something like that. Mm-hmm. And he lives a wonderful bachelor's life with Terry Thomas as his perfect butler in this It starts off with Terry Thomas giving you a tour of his world. This is Mr. Ford's town. And this is Mr. Ford's townhouse. This is Mr. Ford's shower, adjusted to his exact body temperature of 98.7. And the whole deal is he's never, ever, ever, ever going to get married. Well, it happens. And so just watch it. If you've never seen that out there, please watch this movie. It is such a perfect comedy. And it has heart and a great score and some great supporting performances. And golly, yeah, Eddie Meyerhoff, who plays his attorney, is so good. So good. Anyway, great picture. Great picture.
I might have to see it for Verna Lisi just by herself because...
Yeah, well, he goes to a bachelor party and she pops out of a cake, as people did in those days. And next thing he knows, he's married to her. And Well, it's happened to all of us at least once in our lives, hasn't it?
I suppose so.
Anyway, but
man, oh man, Hollywood starlets. Whoa. Okay. Well,
yeah, well,
definitely gonna have to check this one out. That is for sure. Sounds like a really fun premise. So that is awesome.
It's superb. It's just superb.
Fantastic. Well, Lou, I believe that's it. If anybody has any more questions, please go ahead. Deliver them for us, because I think we're going to start wrapping things up here in just a second. VCRs came out when I was a child. I learned how fast forward early on in life. Yeah, Jan, that does help.
Well, Jan, you know what I know? When VCRs came out, you would tape everything. And then you'd have hundreds of tapes you never had time to watch. But boy, if you got sick, it was a movie fest or a TV fest of watching all that stuff you had recorded. But even before them, I noticed, I don't know where I was looking, but something was out about the original Fugitive, the TV series with David Jansen. I was at summer camp in Malibu the week that the famous last episode where he finally catches the one-armed man and ends the show came out. And my mother audio taped it because we didn't have videotape in those days. I had a big reel-to-reel Sony audio tape, and she taped it for me so I could hear the soundtrack when I got home. Those were the days.
That is absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, Julia, it's somewhere on the list, but we got so many movies, and I never know when they're going to come up. And there's two other guys doing it with me who have their opinions too, which is a great thing because I see movies I've never heard of. It astounds me, to tell you the truth, about the genre guys. Can I tell a dirty little secret about the genre guys?
Please.
It astounds me how many of these movies Tables hasn't seen ever. And quite a few that Lauren hadn't too. So I just, no, I don't expect everybody to have seen how many I have because I sit through the stinkers. So you don't have to, as we say about so many things on these channels. But anyway, average run time, probably an hour and a half.
I would think so.
Yeah.
I would think so.
Yeah.
90 minutes feels
because we still had double bills, remember. So if you were going to plan an evening out, if they were both 2 or 3 hours long, the babysitter charged extra. Dennis Stanfield was an executive. Anybody, a lot of these guys that just wound up running things.
That's true. Let me see if I can look up a photo here.
Yeah, he was. He ran Fox for a while when they kicked Zanuck out, and before Dennis Carruthers Stanfield. Yeah. 71 to 81. Yeah, that was not a good time for Fox. But then, what can I say?
Yep. Outside of Star Wars, though. Star Wars, bright spot.
Well, yeah. So there you go.
But yeah, not a good time indeed. That doesn't start to change until probably like the 80s, 90s, I would think. But yeah, it's very interesting who ends up running what. Very, very interesting. But thank you so much, MH, for the South African rant. $7.99. Thank you.
And
just
to show you Hollywood never gets rid of anybody without little conflict. I see a headline here from 1986. Former movie executive Dennis Stanfield settled his wrongful termination and slander suit against 20th Century Fox and its former owner Marvin Davis. So there you go.
Man, goodness gracious. Well, I can tell you right now, Karen, one of the best moms out there for sure. I know Lou has told me some personal stories of her. It just sounds like an amazing, incredible woman who is actually still with us, right?
My mother? Yeah. Well, yeah, absolutely. Going strong at 90. Let's see. I think she'll be 97 on the next one when she gets there. And not having as much fun as she did before, but she's not unwell. She just is old and is ready. But yeah, mom. Well, for example, my parents took us with them on vacations everywhere. We went to the Seattle World's Fair. We went to Hawaii. We went to and all of their friends thought they were out of their minds. They said, "What are you doing? Don't you know you leave the kids with the grandparents and you go by yourself?" And she said, "No, but we actually like seeing it through the kids' eyes and doing it with them." So in those days, it wasn't done that way by everybody. It's how I got to Russia. I was sitting there in a class at Beverly High, and the teacher said, "Hey, by the way, there's a student tour to the Soviet Union. If you're interested, let me know. I'll find out more about it." I went home, asked my parents. They said, "Sure, go." I came back. It turned out he looked it up. No, it was a tour for teachers. He said, "But we could start one." And the next thing you know, they sent people back and forth for the next, I don't know, many years. I was on the first two. And that's how I got there before detente.
Wow. Well,
that was interesting. Winter in Moscow, Leningrad, and Kiev in 1970, 71. And it was cold.
Rough.
The cold really was Leningrad, because Leningrad, sits at the end of the Neva River, and the wind blows up it. And it was New Year's Eve. And we were all having a grand old time drinking vodka and staying warm inside. But I thought, I'm curious. And I put on my heavy coat and all the stuff I had, and I stepped outside the front door of the hotel for all of 45 seconds, because that cut through you like a knife. Didn't matter what you were wearing. And those were the days.
From what I understand, the Germans, they were expecting, we're going to go ahead and take Russia in the summer. Nope, no, you're not. You're going to go through the winter.
Not like that silly Frenchman Napoleon who couldn't do it.
Yeah.
But anyway,
brutal winters.
But you have to remember that the Russians moved whole factories, thousands of miles, hundreds of miles anyway, to the other side of the Urals to try and protect their war production just in case. And anyway,
incredible.
But
yes, Juliet, you were exactly right. I do apologize. Saudi Riyal instead of South African Rand. Do apologize there, MH. But thank you so much for
get your program.
Indeed.
You can't tell the Riyal from the Riyads without a program.
Well, that just
Lou,
about.
Wait, Jan. We had mountains and we had snow and we had the thing my blood couldn't hack when I moved here was the humidity, but I got used to it. True winter, but my forebears all came from that true winter, so I thought it would still be in there somewhere, but no.
Yeah, I have a little bit too much Hispanic running through my veins to take that kind of cold. But hey,
come on, Vash. Everybody's got a Cossack in the woodpile somewhere.
Well, I do have Polish ancestry, so there might be some stuff there.
The Dr. Zhivago Ice Palace scene was fiberglass, and it was shot in Spain in the summertime.
Oh.
Maybe you didn't know that, but that's where they did that, was Spain.
See,
those pictures of the house with all the snow.
We went from 115 degrees on set for The Wizard of Oz and in the brutal cold winters of Russia.
What I remember is, as a kid, going on one of the very first, if not the first, princess cruises up to Alaska. And we stopped in a place called Prince Rupert, British Columbia. And they took us on a tour of a fish processing plant. And the plant had one of those air doors, where you just walk through an archway and suddenly the temperature drops. It was 85 degrees outside and it was like 35 inside. And what happened was, I see people talking about sweat. The sweat on your nose, on the tip of your nose, you literally felt it crystallize as you walk through from the sunshine to the cold of that fish plant. That was bizarre. Whoa. That was a strange experience. But
wow.
Lou and the Hollywood Weatherman is what we're getting into here. I don't think we need to do that.
I suppose so.
But yeah, I gotta go on one of those. That was all fiberglass. So anyway,
gotta go on one of those Alaskan cruises myself. Before we get there, if you want to go ahead and email us your questions, you can at t3ponline@yahoo.com. Definitely taking inquiries for sure.
We have a 2-week schedule change we need to tell everybody about.
Yes. I almost forgot. Thank you so much for reminding me, Lou. Yes, 2-week schedule change. So for the next 2 weekends, Hollywood, and on 2 weekends only, Hollywood Backlot with Lou and you will actually occur on Saturdays rather than Sundays. We're still trying to develop a time. Don't worry, we will go ahead and update you. It'll probably be the same time period. Do you think, Lou? Or
yeah, sure. Why not?
Okay. So 2 p.m. Eastern on Saturdays, not Sundays. I'm actually traveling to Palm Springs. So that's what's going on right there. Very excited, and maybe we'll have a Palm Springs filled episode.
Hey, Palm Springs Weekend, great silly movie, and Playground of the Stars in the summertime, in the wintertime, not in the summer. Ooh. Josh, bite your tongue. Anyway,
that will. Yeah, exactly. Definitely bite your tongue there, Josh. Come on now. Not like Bob. No, I know he was just kidding. Thank you so much, Josh Hammond, for joining us, by the way.
If I was a weatherman, I'd get the weather right. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah, it'd be like, you know what it'd be like? It'd be like a Back to the Future 2, right?
Well, I wouldn't be telling the weather that it had to go my way because I'm the boss, and the weather wouldn't be saying, yes, sir.
Yes,
like the Disney board.
Yes, actually, I am staying in a resort right next to Catino, so I'll get some pictures if I can
of the laughing place
itself. Yeah, of the laughing place if I can reach it. I know it's walled up all the way around, but I'm going to try to get some pictures here. Check on the Catino progress because it's supposed to be opening sometime soon. But yeah, you're right, Captain. Staying in a resort right next to it, ironically enough. Ooh. Very, very interesting indeed.
I hope yours is not like the resort next to the Chinese park.
No.
Good.
That's not the kind of resort I'm staying at. That's for sure.
Yeah, exactly.
Much nicer digs. I'll go ahead and I'll send some pictures here. Your guys' way. That way you guys can get a sense of where we're staying. For sure. Follow the Bradley's Fun is also in the chat. Thank you so much for joining us there. Josh Hammond, thank you so much for moderating. Captain John D, thank you so much for joining us here. And also Spencer from Bending into Comics. Sorry, I just had a brain fart there. Thank you so much, Nita, everybody in the chat for joining us. You guys make the show what it is. Thank you, Lou, for your amazing stories right there. Like we said before, if you want to go ahead and email us, you can at t3ponline@yahoo.com. Subscribe if you haven't subscribed yet. We're coming out with great content every single day for you. So,
what you said about amazing stories, suddenly I feel like Tennessee Tuxedo and his tales. There's a memory for some people.
That's great. It's
fantastic. Always a pleasure. And even though we sort of wander all over the known and unknown map, it's fun. And I'm glad so many people choose to join us. And what else can I say except it's very gratifying that it's certainly gratifying for my wife, who's heard all these stories 100 times before, for me to have a new audience to burden them with. But
well, your wife's burden is our reward, I suppose.
There you go. I'll tell you said so.
Absolutely, 100%. Thank you so much. If you like this video, do like this video. If you like us a lot, share us out. We always appreciate the share.
You were never here.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. I'm hoping not to get a Snow White dislike the like ratio.
If we don't make you feel like that, we're going to wind up on a lady's hat.
Oh, that's a great reference right there. I need to get more drops from the Tiki Room, actually. That's what I need to do. That's probably a good thing. Anyway.
Well, I'm famous for making children freak out on that ride, you know. You know how? I sing along with the Hawaiian war chant. And they suddenly realize this old fart sitting next to him on the bench knows those words. How is that possible?
I love that. I love that show, stem to stern. Hopefully never change it, but will.
Yeah, of course. It's got too much birds in it. We need more bees to balance it out.
Got too much Walt magic in there. We got to balance it out.
Yeah, too much. Boy, if they all knew that Wally Bogue is making Jose's voice, talk about what is it? Ethnic colonization or something. I don't know.
Hopefully they never find out the truth about that. I love all the voices in the Tiki Room, but alas, get your fill in on these things while they are still around, and that includes us. Please go ahead and subscribe, and thank you so much for joining us. We will see you next time on Hollywood Backlot with Lou and you. Take care now.
Adios, muchachos.